So after 3 whole years of waiting, arguably the most anticipated second season of a show in the history of Netflix has finally landed on our screens, Squid Game Season 2. Following us all being confused as to why Gi-Hun didn't just take the 45.6 billion won and go and see his daughter, instead of trying to get back into the games, this season provided an answer on exactly why he made his decision. And we also saw his quest of looking to take down the frontman and the existence of the games themselves. However, little did he know that the very person that he was looking for was quite literally right under his nose the entire time. With an ending that set up Season 3 perfectly, which is set to be the final season of the show, and a mid-credits scene which also shone a light on what could be on the horizon. Let's break down the ending of this season and answer all of the main questions. Here is Squid Game Season 2 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained inside of the games. When it came to the ending of Season 2, we always knew that there was going to be a Season 3 in the future, as the creator confirmed during the summer that the third installment would be the last. So the story in Season 2 was one that was never really going to get any kind of resolution in Episode 7, because it was going to be spread across more than one season. Hence why it felt like it ended so abruptly, with Jung Bae being killed by the frontman. This was his punishment for Gi-Hun for the uprising that he orchestrated in the attempt to find the frontman in the management area. This was so Gi-Hun would have even more deaths on his conscience, something which we did see impacted him heavily in the earlier parts of the season, and it carried through, as he had nightmares that he was going to lead people to their deaths. The season was all about Gi-Hun wanting to find the frontman so that he could kill him, and also the very people that facilitate the games, so that the individuals that were viewed as disposable, those that were in debt and didn't offer anything to society, could stop being viewed that way. He wanted the participants to stop being killed as entertainment for the rich and to put an end to it for good. The frontman going into the games and positioning himself as a contestant and giving himself number 1, which was definitely a callback to Ilnam being number 1 and being the creator of the games. It was something that he did because he wanted to almost taunt Gi-Hun and be alongside him without him even knowing. He was also trying to catch him out morally throughout their time together too, such as when Gi-Hun was prepared to allow several of the exes to die for the greater good of the plan in being able to launch the uprising and make their way to the management area. Something which kind of went against Gi-Hun's philosophy of nobody being viewed as disposable, but the very people that he was on the same side with were being viewed as that by him. Hence why there was a slight smirk that was on Young-Il's face when Gi-Hun said that. The battle taking place was something which was never truly going to work, and the frontman was always going to switch sides in the end. Not a single O joined Gi-Hun in the fight to get to the management area, and several of the exes were decimated. Which means that when the show returns in Season 3, the O's are going to have the majority vote when they vote again in the morning, and the games are going to continue, meaning that the prize pot is going to get even bigger. This is why I believe In-ho allowed Gi-Hun to let the uprising happen. He had the same mindset as Gi-Hun, sacrifice a few for the greater good, and that's exactly what we saw happening with the soldiers. One thing that I found particularly interesting about the final moments when the frontman killed Jung Bae was that he did it without any hesitation. In-ho posing as Jung-Il spent a lot of time with Jung Bae, so it was a shock to see it happen, but I suppose it more so showed us just how cold of an individual he was and that it was all just one big act. Both Gi-Hun and In-ho had mirrored actions in this season of the show, especially the finale, but they were just on opposing sides of the war. When it came to In-ho, we heard him telling a backstory about the character that he made up, Jung-Il. The story that his wife was ill and was dying, and he was in there because he wanted the money for her treatment. Plus, she was also pregnant. We know that in reality, In-ho's wife actually died, as Jun-Ho visited her grave. So it also made me wonder if she was carrying his child when she died in real life. This could be why he has the mindset that he has. He lost everything that he cared about, and he could be expressing the blame and anger that he has through the games. We know that he was once a participant in the games in 2015, so was that his motivation at the time? And was he tapping into what his original reason was in this season of the show? Could she have even died whilst he was in there, so it would have made the money redundant to him? I imagine we'll learn more about his backstory in the next season of the show, but it's one that I'm definitely interested in. Outside of Gi-Hun and In-ho, we saw that many of the other members of the X's team's fate were in question at the end of the episode. For example, Dae-ho was paralyzed with fear when he went back to retrieve the extra rounds for the weapons. He couldn't walk towards the gunshots, and I'm presuming that's because of some kind of PTSD that he has from being a Marine. We also saw Jun-Hee and Myung-Gi had made up, and it seemed like there was an ounce of care that was between them again, maybe insinuating that if they got out, then there would be a chance at togetherness with their child that she's carrying. Hyunju was also prepared to die by firing at the soldiers that stormed into the room, but Geum-Ja stopped her from doing so, which means that she'll be alive in the next season of the show. No-Eul Number 11 Explained. Number 11 was an extremely interesting character in this season of the show. We found out that she left North Korea, and when she did, she left her daughter behind. Something that made her miss her, and also become a soldier in the game so that she could make money and hire somebody to locate her daughter and bring her to South Korea. But it was difficult for her to be found. This was something that gave her a deep connection to contestant 246, the person who she saw on the outside that had a daughter called Na-Yeon who was extremely ill and needed a bone marrow transplant. Because he was in the games, you'd have to imagine that he couldn't afford it. No-Eul was a soldier that carried out her duties of killing the contestants if they were eliminated, but she didn't want to be a part of the black market organ extraction and selling that the games was doing on the side. We saw that they'd deliberately leave some contestants alive in order to take their parts and sell them on. This was something that she didn't agree with at all, and if she saw that some were left alive, she'd kill them so it wouldn't be able to happen. Something that did land her in trouble on several occasions with the officer. No-Eul's connection to 246 and his daughter was something that made her keep an eye on him during the games, but as we saw in the closing moments of the finale, 246 was shot as he surrendered, and he was shot by somebody that had a triangle mask, the same shape that she had, so I'm wondering if that was her. I don't buy that she'd actually do long-lasting damage to him though. She has a soft side within, and the fact that she returned the red hat during the beginning, I don't think she'd deprive that daughter of a father. The ending explained outside of the island. Jun-Ho was desperately looking to get to the island that his brother, the Frontman, shot him off during Season 1, and in order to do that, we saw him working with a captain where he'd been going out with him and searching for it for the past few years. We were under the impression that the captain was a good guy and was genuinely as naive as what he said he was. However, it turned out that that wasn't the case at all. During the final episode, we saw that the captain was messing around with the drone that they were using to fly over the island, and he was caught doing so during the dead of night. When that happened, he killed the person that caught him and threw him overboard, showing that he was definitely involved in the games that occurred. We also have to remember that he was the person that found Jun-Ho when he was lost at sea, so he was always going to come across him if he was involved in the games. I'm imagining that he was messing around with the drone because they were getting close to uncovering the truth, or even another entrance to the island and the location where the games happen. The drone was their way of being able to stay safe whilst searching, so if it wasn't able to work, it would mean that they'd have to get off the boat, which would most likely lead to more of them dying. So I feel he's gonna be doing his best to prevent Jun-Ho from finding another entrance to the place that's been plaguing his mind for so long. The mid-credits scene explained. During the rolling of the credits after the finale, there was a mid-credits scene that appeared. We saw 3 contestants walking towards the infamous Yong-Hee doll for a game of red light, green light. But as well as that, we also saw another doll. This was actually a doll called Chol-Soo, a doll that was teased by the creator of the show when he announced that there would be a new season of Squid Game. I'm predicting this is going to be a scene from Season 3 of the show, and that there's going to be a new variation of the infamous game that always eliminates the first batch of contestants. My review of Squid Game Season 2. I thought it was great to have Squid Game back on our screens after a fair few years. Do I think it was as good as Season 1? No, I don't. But I think that's because, realistically, we've only seen half of it. This definitely felt like a story that's been cut short, and when you look at the production of it, we've not received the final product. Apparently, Season 2 and Season 3 were filmed back to back, so the full story has been told, we've just not received it yet. So it is a bit of a shame, but true judgment will be cast on this particular story at the end of Season 3, I think. In terms of the games, it felt like there was a lot less of a focus on them in this season of the show, and I think that was a shame, because the games are what made the first season so good. I imagine we've got a fair few in Season 3, and because it's been spread out, that's probably why the absence is felt. I do also feel like the show tried to mirror certain things that worked in the first season, and it just felt a bit too copy and paste for me. For example, when Abdul Ali was killed in Season 1, it was such a powerful and emotional moment, and I feel like they tried to mimic that with Young-Mi when she didn't make it in this season. But it just didn't feel the same because there wasn't really that much of an emotional connection to her, so it didn't land as I feel the show wanted it to. Don't get me wrong, it was a strong moment, but it just felt like it was done to mimic what happened in Season 1. In terms of the characters in this season, I thought there was some good variety for sure, but I don't think I felt as connected to them as I did the characters in the first season. That being said though, I did like Jun-Hee, Yong-Sik, his mother, Hyunju, and also Jung Bae. I thought they all had very interesting story arcs, and the relationships that they had with each other were definitely the most interesting ones to follow outside of the main story. With regards to Jun-Ho, I kind of felt like his story was just on the side, but I imagine it's going to get way more of a focus in Season 3 as the show draws to an end, because it's one that's extremely complex, because it's obviously his brother that's behind the games. I suppose if he had have made it into the games in this part, there wouldn't be as much to build towards in the next season of the show. One thing that I do want to praise the show for is the music that it uses. It just really knows how to capture the environment and mood of a scene. When the iconic sound started playing at the end of episode 2 for the first time, with the twist of No-Eul being a soldier and not a contestant, it was such a great moment. I'd also say that the first 2 episodes were really strong. I did worry about how they were planning on picking the show back up and reintroducing us to the world, but they did it in such a seamless, creative way. Everything that happened with trying to find the recruiter was so interesting to follow, and it definitely stood out in this season. I also think the finale with the battles that took place were just epic to watch. The one in the darkness between the X and O's, and also the one between the contestants and the soldiers. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen when the show does return. This was a good installment for sure, and it was definitely worth the wait, but I feel we'll get the real bulk of it and the same feeling that we had in Season 1 when Season 3 eventually airs. So, there you have it, Squid Game Season 2 Ending Explained. What did you think of this season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.